Sheriff Dale Patterson was halfway through his morning coffee when the world changed. One moment he was watching sunrise creep across Pinecrest Valley's main street, and the next, a brilliant light washed over everything. His ceramic mug hit the floor before he registered it slipping from his fingers. When the light faded, he blinked away spots from his vision and froze. The sheriff's station looked the same. The outdated computers, the corkboard covered in community notices, even the half-eaten donut on Deputy Garcia's desk. But something was fundamentally wrong. The quality of the light streaming through the windows had changed. It seemed almost artificial. Across town, Dr. Maya Chen jolted awake in her childhood bedroom. She'd returned to Pinecrest only yesterday, a brief visit home before heading to a marine biology conference in Seattle. The air felt strange, slightly thicker, with an underlying scent she couldn't place. Subtle vibrations coursed through the floorboards as she swung her feet down. Something hummed beneath them, a mechanical rhythm no small town should have. "Mom," she called, stepping into the hallway. The house responded with silence. Outside, people emerged from homes and businesses, confusion etched on their faces as they stared upward. Maya followed their gaze and felt her scientific mind struggle to process what she saw. The sky was wrong. Though blue and dotted with clouds, it curved unnaturally at the horizon. And the sun, if that's what the bright orb was, didn't quite behave like sunlight should. "It's a dome," came a voice beside her. Jackson Reed stood with military posture, his eyes narrowed as he scanned their surroundings. The former Army Ranger had returned to Pinecrest 3 years ago, opening a sporting goods store while trying to outrun memories of desert combat. "We're inside something." Maya had known Jackson since high school but barely spoken to him since his return. Now his combat experience seemed suddenly valuable. "How far do you think it extends?" "That's what we need to find out." His gaze shifted to something beyond her shoulder. "But first, we should talk about them." Maya turned and felt her breath catch. Beyond what appeared to be a transparent barrier at the edge of town stood figures, distinctly non-human figures. Their bodies were long and sinuous, with multiple upper limbs and elongated cranial structures. They were watching, taking notes on devices, pointing at the humans. "They're treating this like an exhibit," Maya whispered, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding fear. Panic spread through the gathering crowd as more people noticed their observers. Sheriff Patterson pushed through, trying to establish order, his hand instinctively resting on his sidearm, though he wisely kept it holstered. "Everyone stay calm," he shouted, his voice carrying authority despite the tremor in it. "We need to figure this out before we do anything rash." 16-year-old Zach Williams pushed his glasses up his nose, his tablet clutched in his hands. "The internet's gone, but there's some kind of local network. It's not like anything I've seen before." Mrs. Abernathy from the library fainted. The high school quarterback vomited behind a tree. 2 young children began crying for parents who were across town when whatever happened happened. Jackson spoke quietly to Maya. "We need to establish a perimeter, take inventory of who's here and what resources we have. If we've been taken, there's a reason." Maya nodded, her scientific mind already cataloging observations. "The air is breathable, but has trace elements I can't identify. The plants look like ours, but..." She knelt to examine a flower bed. "These have been recently transplanted. They didn't just take us," Jackson concluded grimly. "They took pieces of our world, recreated it." In the distance, beyond the transparent barrier, more alien figures gathered, their postures suggesting excitement. A large floating object moved into position above the dome, projecting something onto the barrier. "What is that?" Sheriff Patterson asked, squinting. Maya felt her stomach drop as alien symbols materialized, followed by what appeared to be a translation underneath in multiple Earth languages. The final line in English read, "Welcome to Nexus Prime Living Museum. Earth exhibit now open." The first week in captivity tested Pinecrest Valley in ways no natural disaster ever could. After the initial panic subsided, a strange routine emerged. Each morning, the dome's lighting system would gradually intensify, mimicking sunrise. Each night, it would dim, though never reaching true darkness. The residents quickly discovered the boundaries of their enclosure, a perfect 3-mile diameter circle centered on Main Street, with transparent barriers that were impossible to breach. Premium viewing today. Witness the mysterious bipeds of Death World XG7 as they engage in social rituals. A translated announcement echoed through hidden speakers as a new group of alien visitors pressed against the observation glass. Their forms varied wildly. Some with multiple eyes arranged in geometric patterns, others with bodies that seemed to shift like liquid mercury, and a few that appeared to be collections of crystalline structures, somehow moving as unified entities. Dr. Maya Chen sat on a bench in what used to be the town square, documenting everything in her journal. Her scientific training provided some emotional distance, allowing her to observe their observers with professional curiosity. They categorized 17 distinct social behaviors since yesterday, she noted, watching a floating device scan a group of teenagers who had organized an impromptu soccer game. They seemed particularly fascinated by our recreational activities. Jackson Reed approached, carrying a hand-drawn map. I've completed the perimeter assessment. There are 5 maintenance access points that they use to deliver food and remove waste, all heavily monitored. Behind them, Sheriff Patterson had organized a town meeting inside the high school gymnasium. Unlike many disaster scenarios where social order collapsed, Pinacrest was pulling together. The grocery store owner had implemented a rationing system. The hospital staff had inventoried medical supplies. The high school science teachers were testing water and air quality. It's remarkable, Maya said, closing her journal. In most captive animal populations, there's either aggression or depression. We're adapting. That's what they're counting on, Jackson replied. They want to see us settle in, make ourselves at home in the cage. Beyond the barrier, a tall, spindly creature in what appeared to be formal attire gestured to a group of smaller aliens. A translator device activated. Note the hierarchical social organization. Despite lacking specialized biological castes, they form complex social structures through behavioral signals alone. The creature, clearly some kind of guide, continued. Observe how they utilize primitive tools rather than evolved biological adaptations. This compensatory behavior allowed them to dominate their death world despite being physically inferior to many predator species. Maya's scientific indignation flared. Death world. Physically inferior. Has this guide ever heard of human endurance hunting or thermal regulation? Jackson's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile under different circumstances. Save that anger. We'll need it. Across the habitat, Zach Williams had discovered something interesting. The environmental controls that regulated temperature and humidity followed predictable patterns. While pretending to play with his tablet, now useless without internet, he was actually recording cycle times and variations. It's a computer system, he explained to his physics teacher after class, and every computer system has exploitable flaws. In the administrative section of Nexus Prime, beyond the public exhibition spaces, Dr. Trilith reviewed the daily monitoring reports. The xenobiologist's 6 eyes blinked in asynchronous patterns, indicating deep thought. Fascinating, the scientist noted, manipulating the holographic display with 3 of its upper appendages. Subject group demonstrates unprecedented adaptation curve. Social cohesion has increased rather than decreased under captivity stress. An assistant floated a data chart into view. Ticket sales have exceeded projections by 27%. The military observers have requested additional monitoring access. Dr. Trilith's skin flushed a deep purple, the species' indication of concern. Denied. This is a scientific and educational exhibition, not a military assessment. The assistant's tendrils curled nervously. The board of directors has already approved their request. They arrive tomorrow. Back in the habitat, as evening fell, Jackson gathered a small group in the basement of the hardware store. Maya, Zach, and 5 others with useful skills listened intently as he outlined their situation. "They think we're animals in a zoo," he said quietly. "But we're going to show them just how dangerous the animals from Earth can be when they work together." 23 days into captivity, Jackson Reed checked his makeshift watch, constructed from spare parts scavenged from the hardware store. It was nearly time. His small resistance group had spent 2 weeks observing the maintenance routines, noting that the waste reclamation system required physical access from zoo staff every 3rd cycle. "They're creatures of habit," he whispered to Maya as they huddled in the shadow of the recycling center at the edge of town. "That's their weakness." Maya nodded, her breath visible in the artificially cooled air. The zookeepers had begun simulating seasons, dropping the temperature to mimic approaching autumn. "Remember, we're not trying to escape today. This is just reconnaissance." Behind them, Emma Lawson, the high school chemistry teacher, and Marcus Delgado, a plumber, carried modified tools. They had melted down kitchen implements and reshaped them into pry bars and picks, nothing that would register as weapons on the zoo's security scans, but useful nonetheless. "The access point opens in 30 seconds, Zach whispered, his eyes never leaving his tablet where he'd mapped the patterns of the enclosure's maintenance systems. "Once they unlock it, we have a 4-minute window before the secondary security protocols activate." Jackson gave a single nod. In and out. No heroics. When the maintenance hatch slid open and a sinuous alien shape entered to service the waste reclamation filters, the small team of humans waited in perfect stillness. The technician, a creature with 4 elongated arms and bioluminescent patches, worked methodically, unaware of being observed. As soon as the alien retreated and the hatch began to close, Jackson moved. Using the modified pry bar, he jammed the mechanism just enough to prevent complete sealing without triggering the immediate alarm. Then they slipped inside. The service corridor beyond was lit with a pulsing blue light that made human skin look gray and lifeless. The air carried an acrid chemical smell that burned their nostrils. 14 different species used this corridor, Maya observed, noting the varying heights of control panels and maintenance equipment. None of them human. Jackson assessed the passage. Standard maintenance tunnel. Leads to central hub, most likely. "Marcus, how much time?" 3 minutes, 10 seconds, the plumber replied, his experienced eye already evaluating the piping systems along the walls. "Emma, what are we looking at here?" Jackson gestured to a control panel. The chemistry teacher studied the alien symbols. "Environmental regulation, I think. Similar to what we've seen on the habitat boundaries, but more complex." They progressed 20 meters before Zach's tablet emitted a soft peep. "Security scan incoming." 30 seconds. Maya quickly noted a junction ahead. "There, that looks like it connects to other habitats." They reached the junction just as a high-pitched whine began to build. Through a transparent section of wall, they glimpsed another habitat, a swampy environment where massive amphibian-like creatures wallowed in murky water. "We're not alone," Maya whispered, her scientific curiosity momentarily overwhelming caution. "Time's up," Marcus warned. They had learned what they needed. As they retreated toward their access point, however, floating spherical drones descended from recessed ceiling compartments, bathing them in scanning beams. "Run," Jackson ordered, but it was too late. The drones emitted a soft pulse that sent all 5 humans crumpling to the floor, consciousness slipping away even as alarm systems began to wail. When they awoke, they were back in their habitat, lying on hospital beds with concerned townspeople gathered around. Dr. Fernandez, Pinnacrist's chief physician, checked their vital signs. "They didn't harm you," he reported with surprise. "No injuries beyond mild sedation." Maya's mind raced despite her grogginess. "They could have killed us easily, but they didn't. They treated us with care. Like valuable specimens," Jackson added grimly. Outside the habitat's barrier, the incident had caused tremendous excitement among visitors. Attendance doubled overnight, as news spread of the daring escape attempt by Earth predators. Viewing fees tripled for premium positions. In her monitoring station, Dr. Trilith reviewed the security footage with growing fascination. She recorded her observations. Subjects demonstrate coordinated group tactics and tool adaptation unprecedented in non-hive species. Most notably, they retreated in formation to protect their weaker members, behavior consistent with advanced social development rather than mere predatory instinct. The xenobiologist paused the footage on an image of Maya studying the junction to other habitats, her expression one of scientific curiosity rather than fear. "Perhaps," Dr. Trilith murmured, 6 eyes blinking in an irregular pattern that indicated deep uncertainty. "We have significantly misclassified this species." Vorax adjusted the monitoring equipment with slender, 6-fingered hands. As a junior zookeeper from the Lithurian species, known across the galaxy for their philosophical traditions and ethical frameworks, he had requested assignment to the Earth exhibit out of genuine curiosity. Where others saw merely entertaining specimens, Vorax sensed something more complex. Today marked his 14th consecutive shift observing the habitat. The zoo administrators had established a rotation system, but Vorax had traded assignments with colleagues to maintain continuity in his observations. The female human with the recording device particularly intrigued him. Through high-resolution scanners, he watched as Maya Chen sat on a bench near the barrier, sketching in her journal. Her drawings weren't merely representational. They contained complex mathematical notations, diagrams of the habitat systems, and what appeared to be hypotheses about the technology containing them. "Fascinating," Vorax murmured, his copper-colored eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of deep thought in his species. "She's cataloging everything systematically." On impulse, Vorax did something strictly forbidden by zoo protocols. During a moment when no visitors or other staff were present, he placed a simple geometric symbol on his side of the barrier, directly in Maya's line of sight. Inside the habitat, Maya froze as the small glowing triangle appeared on the transparent wall. She glanced around quickly, then back to the symbol. After a moment's hesitation, she opened to a fresh page in her journal and drew a corresponding triangle, adding a circle inside it before holding it up toward the barrier. Vorax's respiratory ridges fluttered in excitement. Communication, deliberate and symbolic. He waited until maintenance systems briefly obscured the surveillance feeds, then quickly drew a circle with 2 triangles beneath it. Maya responded almost immediately with the same pattern, adding a small quadrilateral shape to the right side. For 20 minutes, this exchange continued, growing increasingly complex. By the time Vorax's shift ended, they had established a rudimentary symbolic language consisting of 15 distinct elements. "You spend considerable time at the Earth exhibit," noted Supervisor Krex, a senior zookeeper whose gelatinous form shimmered with mural activity. "Have you observed behaviors worth reporting?" Vorax's tertiary hearts quickened. Zoo policy mandated immediate reporting of any sign of sentience in classified non-sentient exhibits, yet something held him back. "Their social organization continues to evolve in captivity," he replied carefully. "They demonstrate remarkable adaptability." Yes, that's why military observers maintain interest," Krex rippled dismissively. "Adaptable predator species always attract attention from the defense sector." After his shift, Vorax accessed the restricted archives, searching for the original survey data that had classified Earth as a death world with non-sentient dominant predators. The reports were surprisingly thin, remote observations only, with minimal direct sampling. The following morning, Maya arrived at her usual spot earlier than normal. When no symbol appeared on the barrier, disappointment crossed her features. Then she noticed a small object sitting on her side of the barrier, a flat disc that must have been slipped through during night cycle maintenance. With shaking fingers, she picked it up. The disc projected a holographic array of symbols, an expanded version of the rudimentary language they had begun to establish, with thousands of elements arranged in structured patterns. Meanwhile, Jackson Reed had noticed the exchange. He approached Maya carefully. "You've made contact," he said quietly, expression unreadable. Maya nodded, clutching the disc. "This could change everything, Jackson. If we can communicate with them." "It's a risk," he interrupted. "This could be a one-off, an individual breaking rules, or it could be a test to see how we respond." "Either way," Maya replied, studying the complex symbol array. "It's our first real chance to be seen as more than animals." In his quarters, Vorex reviewed Maya's journal entries captured by the Habitat's surveillance systems. The human's scientific notation system, her hypotheses about galactic civilization, her detailed observations of alien physiology, all pointed to a level of cognitive function far beyond the zoo's classification parameters. What he was considering violated not just zoo protocols but potentially galactic law. If humans were sentient and had been wrongfully classified, the implications were profound and disturbing. The Nexus Prime Living Museum would face severe penalties. Careers would end. Reparations would be demanded. But the ethical imperatives of his species allowed no other course. Vorex began preparing a more sophisticated translation device, one that would bridge not just symbols but language. The truth needed to be known, whatever the cost to himself or the institution that employed him. Dawn maintenance routines provided the perfect cover. While the environmental systems recalibrated and surveillance temporarily cycled to backup modes, Vorex slipped the translation device through a microfilter port, a calculated risk that would end his career if discovered. The device, no larger than a human palm, contained linguistic algorithms compiled from thousands of first contact scenarios across the galaxy. Maya found it tucked beneath a bench, their prearranged location from yesterday's symbol exchange. With trembling hands, she activated it according to the pictographic instructions. The device hummed softly before projecting a holographic interface. "Jackson, Zach," she whispered into her handheld radio. "Meeting point B. Now." In the maintenance tunnels behind the habitat, Vorex monitored his personal scanner. If the translator worked properly, the humans would be able to input their language for analysis. Hours would pass before true communication became possible. But the scanner pulsed with incoming data. Maya had already configured the device. Rather than inputting basic vocabulary as expected, she had uploaded complex linguistic structures, mathematical principles, and scientific notation. Impossible, Vorex breathed. The linguistic adaptation algorithms estimated 18 hours for basic translation protocols. At this rate, they would establish functional communication within minutes. Inside the habitat's shuttered library, Jackson watched the holographic interface with cautious intensity while Zach worked to understand its technical specifications. Maya input information at a rapid pace, her scientific background proving invaluable. "It's working," she said as the device began translating her English into alien script and audio. "Listen." The device emitted a series of melodic tones followed by words in a surprisingly human-like voice. "Greetings from Nexus Prime Living Museum. Language acquisition progressing at unprecedented rate. Please continue input." 2 hours later, hidden from habitat surveillance by carefully positioned furniture and signal-dampening materials, Zach had fashioned from household items, the first real conversation between human and alien began. "I am Vorex, junior biological anthropologist of the Litherian Philosophical Collective," came the translation. "What I am doing violates museum protocols and possibly galactic law." Maya leaned toward the device. "I am Dr. Maya Chen, marine biologist from Earth. These are my colleagues Jackson Reed and Zachary Williams. We represent a technologically advanced civilization with space travel capabilities, quantum computing, and unified field theory understanding. We are sentient beings unlawfully detained." A long pause followed before the device translated Vorex's response. "The Galactic Sentient Rights Accord explicitly forbids captivity of sentient species. Earth is classified as Death World XJ7, containing pre-technological apex predators. If your claims are accurate, a severe violation has occurred." "We have questions," Jackson interjected, his military training evident in his direct approach. "How many humans have been taken? Are there plans for more abductions? Why has Earth been targeted?" The answers came slowly, each one more disturbing than the last. Only Pinnacrist Valley had been taken, approximately 500 humans, as a test case. The success of the exhibit had prompted plans for capturing specimens from other regions of Earth. The military interest stemmed from humans' unique adaptability under stress conditions. "Your species demonstrates problem-solving capabilities and social cohesion that defy conventional evolutionary models for non-hive predators," Vorex explained. Several military contractors believe these traits could be genetically isolated and transferred to bioengineered combat units. Maya felt sick. They want to weaponize human adaptability. Zach, who had been quietly examining the translator's technical specifications, looked up with wide eyes. "This device interfaces with the museum's information systems. If I can access deeper levels." "It's too dangerous," Vorex warned. "Security protocols." "Got it," Zach interrupted, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "I'm in their basic inventory system. I can see." "Oh. What is it?" Jackson demanded. Zach's face paled. "Construction has already begun on 5 more Earth habitats. They're planning major expansions. Targeted collection sites include locations called New York, Tokyo, and London. You must understand," Vorex's translation continued, "I submitted reports questioning your classification, but the museum has invested billions in the Earth exhibit. The administrators dismissed my concerns as anthropomorphization of specimens. I was officially reprimanded and reassigned." Maya exchanged glances with Jackson. "They know we're sentient. They just don't want to admit it." "Precisely," came Vorex's reply. "The financial and legal ramifications would be catastrophic for them. It is easier to maintain the current classification." "Then we need irrefutable proof," Jackson said grimly. "Evidence they cannot ignore." Outside the habitat, unaware of the conversation taking place within, Dr. Trilith presented the latest behavioral analysis to the museum's board of directors. The presentation highlighted the Earth exhibit's unprecedented popularity and profitability. In conclusion, the xenobiologist stated, "The behavioral complexity of these specimens suggests potential for even more sophisticated exhibition scenarios. I recommend approval for the expansion project." As the board members signaled their unanimous approval, none noticed the small anomaly in the habitat's data stream, the faint trace of an unauthorized communication channel that would soon change everything. "This isn't just about us anymore," Maya addressed the hastily assembled council in the high school's basement. 3 days had passed since first contact with Vorex, and the core group had expanded to include Sheriff Patterson, Dr. Fernandez, Emma Lawson, and several others with critical skills. If they succeed in taking more humans, thousands, maybe millions, could end up in these exhibits. Jackson spread out the maps they'd created based on information from Vorex. "Security is tightest around the habitat barriers and maintenance access points. But they're not watching everything inside our enclosure with the same intensity. They're watching for escape attempts," Zach added, "not for communication. That's our advantage." The plan that emerged was multilayered and subtle, a silent revolution that would build gradually without triggering immediate suspicion. Each group in town was assigned specific roles based on their skills. At dawn the next day, Mrs. Paddle from the garden center began organizing volunteers to plant flowers in carefully designed patterns. To casual observers, it appeared to be simple beautification of their captive environment, a common behavior in long-term specimens. In reality, they were creating massive symbols visible from above, mathematical constants, and prime number sequences that no non-sentient species could produce. Meanwhile, the high school music teacher, Mr. Okafor, gathered his students for what appeared to be therapeutic community concerts in the park. The music they played contained structured patterns, Fibonacci sequences translated into rhythm, musical representations of DNA structure, and encodings of physical constants like the speed of light. The sound carries through their audio monitoring systems, Maya explained to Vorex through their secure channel. Even if they're not watching, they're hearing evidence of our intelligence. In their daily routines, the townspeople began incorporating subtle demonstrations of complex cognition. Parents teaching children advanced mathematics. Engineers building increasingly sophisticated devices from limited materials. The high school science classes conducting experiments on the properties of their enclosure. Vorex provided crucial information from the outside. Visitor attendance continues to rise. Your seemingly random activities are being interpreted as charming mimicry of civilization. The guide narratives emphasize how Earth predators display rudimentary social behaviors similar to early pre-technological societies. They're watching us build machines and still think we're animals. Dr. Fernandez asked incredulously. Cognitive dissonance, Maya explained. They've invested too much in their narrative to see the evidence before them, but others are beginning to notice. Indeed, Vorex reported that certain visitors, particularly those from older, more established galactic species, had begun questioning the official classification. Comments were appearing on interstellar networks speculating about the true nature of the Earth specimens. Attendance by academic researchers had increased threefold. Jackson focused on preparation for the moment when the silent revolution would need to become vocal. We need to be ready when the opportunity presents itself, he instructed his team. No premature moves. Across the habitat, Zach worked with the translation device, carefully probing the museum's systems while avoiding detection. Their security is designed to prevent physical breaches, not information extraction, he explained to Maya. I've located their central announcement system. When the time comes, we can broadcast to the entire museum. Outside the habitat, the ripples of the humans' coordinated actions were beginning to affect the wider museum ecosystem. Dr. Trilith found herself cornered after a lecture by Professor Zentith, a representative of one of the galaxy's elder species. Your classification parameters appear inconsistent with observed behaviors, the ancient being noted, its crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated skepticism. The mathematical precision of their environmental modifications suggests abstract thinking capabilities. Mimicry and pattern recognition, Dr. Trilith responded defensively. Many non-sentient species display similar behaviors. Perhaps, the elder being replied, I shall observe more closely during tomorrow's special exhibition. That evening, Vorex transmitted crucial information. The museum has scheduled a special presentation for a delegation of scientific authorities tomorrow. They intend to demonstrate conclusively that humans are fascinating but non-sentient animals. This is your opportunity. In the town hall, Jackson stood before the assembled community. Tomorrow everything changes. Every person has a role to play. Remember your assignments and maintain discipline. As the meeting dispersed, Maya found herself looking up at the artificial stars projected on their dome. Somewhere beyond this prison was Earth, still unaware of the wider galaxy, still vulnerable to those who would treat humans as specimens rather than equals. We're not just fighting for our freedom, she whispered to Jackson as they walked through the quiet streets. We're fighting for our entire species. Then we better not lose, he replied, his expression resolute. The special exhibition day arrived with an atmosphere of tense anticipation throughout Pentecost Valley. The habitat lighting seemed brighter, the air circulation more pronounced. Outside their transparent prison, an unprecedented crowd gathered, not just regular visitors, but dignitaries from 17 systems, academic authorities, and media representatives. They've brought in specialized translators for the presentation, Vorex communicated through their secure channel. Director Quinn will personally conduct the tour. His career depends on convincing everyone you're just clever animals. From her position near the habitat center, Maya watched alien faces press against the barrier. Unlike the usual tourists, these observers had the focused gazes of scientists and scholars. Everyone ready? She asked through her radio. Across town, confirmation signals came in. Jackson had positioned teams strategically throughout the habitat. Zach had established control over a section of the museum's communication system. Everything hinged on timing and coordination. Director Quinn floated majestically before the assembled dignitaries, his ceremonial vestments shimmering with bioluminescence. The museum's most important administrator belonged to a gaseous species that maintained physical form through electromagnetically controlled vapor. Distinguished guests, his amplified voice resonated through both the habitat and viewing areas. Welcome to our most acclaimed exhibition. The predator species of Death World XJ7, known locally as Earth, displays remarkable behavioral adaptations that mimic higher cognitive functions while remaining fundamentally instinct-driven. The director gestured grandly toward the habitat. Observe their social groupings, tool usage, and environmental modifications. While impressive, careful analysis confirms these behaviors emerge from sophisticated instinctual programming rather than true sentience. Inside the habitat, Jackson gave the signal. The townspeople abandoned their seemingly random activities and moved with purposeful coordination. The high school marching band, positioned in the park, began playing not a simple melody, but a musical representation of the first 100 digits of pi. Note how they create pleasing sound patterns. Director Quinn continued, though his vapor form wavered slightly with uncertainty. A mating display common among. He stopped mid-sentence as the humans arranged themselves in perfect geometric formations, then transformed these formations in coordinated movements that spelled out, in multiple galactic standard scripts, "We are Tyranny." Murmurs rippled through the dignitary delegation. Director Quinn's form dispersed slightly before he regained composure. An impressive example of swarm behavior similar to. This time, he was interrupted by Maya, who stepped forward with the translation device modified by Zach to project at maximum volume. Honored representatives of galactic civilization, her words translated into 17 different languages simultaneously. We are not specimens. We are scientists, engineers, artists, and philosophers from Earth, a technologically advanced civilization. The dignitaries pressed closer to the barrier as Maya continued. We have nuclear energy, space exploration, quantum computing, and a rich cultural heritage spanning thousands of years. We have been illegally captured and displayed in violation of the Galactic Sentient Rights Accord, Section 7, Paragraph 3, which states, "Enough." Director Quinn's voice boomed as security drones descended toward the habitat. This is clearly a malfunction in our environmental systems causing abnormal behavior patterns. That was when Jackson's team unveiled what they had been building in secret. From beneath concealing tarps around the habitat, they revealed a series of machines, a working radio transmitter, a primitive but functional computer built from repurposed parts, a scale model of Earth's solar system, with precise orbital calculations displayed. In the town square, children too young to understand the full situation performed the demonstration they'd been practicing, reading books, solving mathematical equations, and creating art that depicted their captivity from a clearly self-aware perspective. Dr. Trilith pushed through the crowd of dignitaries, 6 eyes blinking rapidly as the evidence became overwhelming. Director, I must formally report that my original classification appears to have been in error. These specimens display clear markers off. Silence. Director Quinn hissed, his gaseous form now visibly destabilizing with agitation. Security, terminate this exhibition immediately. But the security systems didn't respond. In the museum's control center, Zach's carefully planted algorithms had temporarily redirected command protocols. Instead, the habitat's barriers became screens displaying evidence the humans had meticulously gathered. Images of Earth cities, spacecraft, scientific achievements, and art, all cycling in a continuous stream impossible to dismiss as instinctual behavior. By denying our sentience, Maya's voice continued to resonate throughout the museum. Nexus Prime violates not only moral principles but galactic law. We address you not as specimens, but as representatives of humanity, demanding recognition and immediate cessation of all plans to capture more of our kind. Professor Zentith, the crystalline elder being, stepped forward. I have heard enough. As a senior member of the Galactic Council's Sentient Rights Commission, I hereby invoke emergency classification protocols. All exhibition activities must cease pending full investigation. Director Quinn's form collapsed into an amorphous cloud of distress as the dignitaries began formal documentation procedures. Throughout the habitat, the people of Pinnacrist Valley embraced each other, tears flowing freely. Their message had been delivered. The demonstration had worked. The galaxy could no longer deny their humanity. 30 days after the demonstration, Nexus Prime remained under the control of Galactic Council authorities. The once bustling tourist attraction now housed teams of legal experts, cynobiologists, cultural specialists, and diplomatic court members. The Earth habitat had been officially redesignated as a provisional human embassy, its barriers now permeable through authorized access points. Maya stood in what had once been the town hall, now converted into a meeting chamber for human galactic interactions. The walls displayed holographic images of Earth, some provided by the humans, others from long-range observation data previously classified by various species. The Sentient Rights Tribunal has reached its final decision, Professor Zentith announced, his crystalline form refracting the room's light in patterns that the humans had learned indicated formal declaration. Nexus Prime Living Museum is found in violation of 17 counts of the Galactic Sentient Rights Accord. The institution's assets are forfeit as reparations to the human species. Director Quinn, now confined within a containment field that prevented his gaseous form from dissipating in distress, hovered in disgrace. The once powerful administrator had been stripped of authority, his career ended by the scandal. Beside him, Dr. Xrilith stood with upper appendages crossed in a posture of professional humility. As the xenobiologist responsible for the initial classification, I formally apologize, Dr. Xrilith stated. My failure to recognize clear markers of sentience reflects poorly on my scientific training. I offer my services in ensuring this wrong is corrected. Jackson watched from the back of the room, still vigilant despite the changed circumstances. The question remains, he said, how do we proceed from here? Earth knows nothing of galactic society. This was the dilemma that had occupied the Pinnacrist Valley Council for weeks. Their immediate freedom was secured, but returning 500 humans with knowledge of alien civilizations would create chaos on an unprepared Earth. We have a proposal, Maya addressed the assembled galactic representatives. The people of Pinnacrist Valley volunteer to remain as Earth's unofficial first contact team. We will learn about galactic civilization, prepare informational resources, and help develop protocols for humanity's eventual formal introduction to the wider universe. The proposal generated intense discussion among the council representatives. Such a situation had no precedent in galactic law. Eventually, a consensus emerged. The former habitat would become a genuine cultural exchange center, with humans serving as consultants on the carefully managed process of introducing Earth to galactic society. Vorex, now officially appointed as liaison to the human embassy, approached Maya as the meeting concluded. Your proposal has been approved with one modification. The Council believes a small delegation should make initial contact with Earth governments to begin preparation. When? Maya asked. Immediately, Vorex replied. A scout vessel has been prepared. The Council suggests Jackson Reed lead the mission, given his tactical background and understanding of human power structures. That evening, as the artificial sunset painted the dome with familiar colors that now seemed strange after all they had learned, the townspeople gathered for a celebration that blended human traditions with their new reality. Tables were set with both Earth foods and safe selections from 17 worlds. Music from across the galaxy mingled with human melodies. Sheriff Patterson raised a glass in toast. To Pinnacrist Valley, the smallest town on Earth, but the first human community in the stars. As the celebration continued, Maya found a quiet moment with Jackson near the edge of town. Tomorrow he would depart with Vorex and a small team on the scout vessel, beginning the delicate process of contacting Earth authorities. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. Jackson looked up at the stars. Real stars now, as the dome had been partially retracted to reveal the actual galactic vista beyond. "Not really," he admitted with a rare smile. "But that's been true since the day we arrived here. Humans adapt. It's what we do best." Maya nodded, her scientific mind already cataloging the countless discoveries awaiting humanity. "When we were taken, I thought it was the end of everything. Now I realize it was just the beginning." In her journal, now regarded as a historical document of first contact, Maya wrote her final entry of this chapter. "Our captivity began as a humiliation, with humans displayed as animals for entertainment. Yet through persistence, intelligence, and cooperation, we've transformed a prison into an embassy, and a catastrophe into opportunity. Today, 500 small-town residents from a death world sit at the table of galactic civilization. Tomorrow, all of humanity joins us. The universe, we've learned, is vast beyond comprehension, but no matter how far we travel among the stars, we carry with us what makes us human. And that, it seems, is something even the galaxy finds remarkable."